Greetings, fans, and welcome again to the Champions Trophy show. Tomorrow, it's a virtual knockout game, a virtual quarterfinal between Afghanistan and Australia. The equation is simple: Afghanistan wins, they go through. Australia loses, they will have to sweat and see what happens in the England versus South Africa clash. But the winner, for sure, will make it to the semifinals again today. As usual, my co host Samir is here to discuss this fixture. Samir,
Hey Roger and fans, how are you doing today? What a crazy tournament this has been. And I
yeah,
think there's going to be a huge game tomorrow morning that we're going to be watching here in the US.
a massive game, Samir. Massive game.
Huge,
Lots of
massive.
excitement for the Pakistani fans, for the Australian fans. But today, Samir, the virtual, what we call a dead rubber, was rained out between Bangladesh and Pakistan. So, I
Thankfully,
mean,
thankfully for all the cricket fans, that game was rained out. Hey,
you're right.
listen,
I think
nobody
no one
wanted
really
to watch
wanted to
that
see it,
game.
right?
Nobody wanted to watch that game. Hey, listen, it was a dead rubber. Both these teams performed incredibly poorly. I think Bangladesh performed a little bit better, but incredibly poor performances by both the teams in this tournament.
What are your overall thoughts, Samir, on this game coming up tomorrow?
Hey, listen, this is a virtual quarterfinal. It's a huge, massive game tomorrow. And I think this is going to be the consequential game that will decide the semifinals, right? Australia wins, they're in. Australia loses, now they're on the whim of what South Africa does, right? And then if South Africa wins, Australia's out. If South Africa loses, it still goes to the net RR. So this is a huge game. I think tomorrow will clarify a lot of things. I'm expecting Afghanistan to come in with a fury. Remember, Afghanistan and Australia have been butting heads, especially on the political front, for the last 2 years. And now I think this is going to be a game that is going to be of consequence. Remember, Maxwell rescued Australia at the World Cup last time with his double century. But not every day is Sunday, right? And I'm not expecting Maxwell to rescue them tomorrow if they're in trouble.
Yeah, memories, Samir, of that last World Cup game between Afghanistan and Australia. Really sort of freak fixture. I remember it like it's yesterday. I mean, Australia were down and out when Maxwell came in. Maxwell was dropped, if I remember correctly, right?
Hey, listen. Here is the thing. Maxwell was dropped, but remember, this was just the second of the games that they had played. They'd also played a T20 game in Adelaide, which was
Mm.
also right around that whole political scenario. And in that game, Maxwell had scored 54 of roughly 32 balls in a T20 game that Australia won by barely 4 runs. Right. So, once again, this team not only played in 2022, then obviously they go to 2023 World Cup, where that game, Afghanistan was winning that game. I think Australia was like 90 for 8 or something. And then all of a sudden, Maxwell goes berserk and scores that 200 and wins the game for them. So Afghanistan was very upset when they lost that game, especially after losing the game in Adelaide, which they thought they would have won that game too. So I think this game, I think they're completely focused. I think Afghanistan's team is completely focused. But remember, Australia is still a very good side. And I think, Australia obviously wants to win this game fair and square and to show Afghanistan who the real champions are.
The form books it can be a little bit misleading. Obviously, we spoke about Australian DNA and how much they win. They have won one of their last 5 games. Obviously, the last game was a no result, and Afghanistan have won 4 of their last 5 games. So they're looking in good form here, Samir.
It does,
My
I think
feeling.
those games do not matter.
Mhm.
I think those games do not matter. This is the game that counts. It's the day that counts. I am fully expecting that Australia is possibly going to play the same game they played against England. There is a lot of talk that, is Sean Abbott probably going to come in for Spencer Johnson? Even if they do that, that's not a consequential change. I think Afghanistan is also going to go with probably the same. Remember the trio of Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi, and Noor Ahmed? They presented a lot of problems for England, even though England did score 300 plus, right? But remember, 300 plus in this tournament is chaseable, that we've seen. And I don't think 300 is a safe total. I think in Lahore tomorrow, depending on weather conditions, let's say we get a full game, I'm expecting both teams to be targeting 350.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. What do you think is Afghanistan's best chance to win this game tomorrow?
Why are there spinners? Rashid Khan, Mohammad Nabi, Noor Ahmed. Once
But
again, those are
is it a surprise though that they only went in the last game with three spinners? Normally, Afghanistan plays four spinners.
no, no. I think three spinners are more than enough for this game. Remember, Australia does have problem with spin, right?
Mhm.
Australia's always had a tough time facing Afghanistani spinners in most of the games. Remember that double century game, if you remember or not, and we can remind the viewers, the double century game was a remarkable game. You got to remember, it was not a game that Australia won on the trot or something, right? Afghanistan put up 291 in that game. Once again, Zadran, 129 not out, carried the bat in that innings, just like he did recently, scoring 177 against England, right? And that is what they're going to look for. They're going to look to put up the runs, and then their bowlers would come to defend. And last time, Rashid Khan had 2 wickets, Omar Zai had 2 wickets, and Naveen ul Haq had 2 wickets, and then they had a lot of runouts in that game. And remember, Australia was in trouble. Australia was 91 for 7 before Pat Cummins, who scored 12 of 68 balls in that game. But guess what? Glenn Maxwell, 201, double century of 128, trotted them to victory. So it wasn't an easy game, if you remember.
I think Afghanistan's best chance tomorrow, Samir, they must bat first. Their strength is batting for obviously bowling is their strength. For me,
Yes.
Afghanistan has to bat first, put runs on the board, and then try to put Australia under pressure with their spinners. Obviously, Omar Zai did very well with seam bowling all round of the last game, and their seam bowling is also quite potent. But I believe having Australia chase and utilizing their spin options tomorrow will be key. But Afghanistan must bat first, in my opinion, to
Hey,
have a
listen.
chance.
Once again, I think you've seen these teams, decide to bat first, especially in Lahore. Teams want to bat first. England batted first, scored 352. Unfortunately, they ran into Inglis. Right, that's what happened. So once again, at any given day, remember these are some of the best teams and some of the best players in the world. So you can never say, hey, listen, we're going to put up 350 and it's not going to be chased. It can absolutely be chased. Any of these teams can absolutely do that. But Afghanistan's strength is obviously defending. And we saw that against England. England needed what, 19 or 15 balls, and
Mhm.
Afghanistan defended that too, right? So I think Afghanistan has an experienced squad. Remember, they've been in this situation 2 times against Australia already. So I think Afghanistan will be confident, but they need to go over the hump, right? If they keep losing again and again to Australia when they're in a winning situation, that doesn't help either. We've seen that in the past with teams who, remember, once again, against Australia, you keep on coming to that edge. South Africa has done it multiple times that they've taken Australia to the edge and eventually, they've never won, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, Australia definitely a winning team, a team that knows how
Listen,
to
it's
win
it's
from any
mental. It's
scenario,
mental.
really.
It's mental, right? That's what it is.
Mm.
I think Afghanistan has great players. Zadran, remember, has proven himself. He scores runs against everybody. I'm expecting tomorrow that Afghanistan's top order is going to perform better.
Right, for sure, for sure, for sure. Well, let's see how that works out tomorrow. And hopefully, I'm rooting for Afghanistan for this one, Samir. I don't know who you're
Hey,
backing
listen,
tomorrow.
I am rooting for Afghanistan too because I think you want Afghanistan to move forward. Remember, they're the only team left out of the big teams now, right? Remember,
Mm.
all the other teams are accomplished teams. Remember, India is a very accomplished team. New Zealand hasn't won a lot in World Cricket events, but remember they won the World Test Championship. But ICC events for ODIs, New Zealand has always performed very well, right? And we are obviously looking for New Zealand too. So to be honest, I would want a New Zealand Afghanistan final. I think that would be a great final, right, to
Yeah,
watch. But at the same time, listen, if I end up with a South Africa, New Zealand, and India, New Zealand, and India, Australia, once again, I don't think there's any scenarios where you're going to be disappointed.
I'm gonna be happy, Samir, if New Zealand, Afghanistan or South Africa wins this champions trophy.
Hey, listen, but if
Any of those
India and
three teams.
Australia do, but if India and Australia do, there's not much you can, put your head behind and say, hey, listen, I'm very disappointed. No, you aren't. India is a good team. Australia is a great team. Remember, these teams have shown again and again that they can win these events.
That is true, but again, these teams, as you mentioned, are sort of the underdogs, and I'd like to see one of them win. Australia and India and
Hey,
India.
I don't consider South Africa and New Zealand underdogs. I consider Afghanistan an underdog. But the rest of the teams are not underdogs. They're very accomplished teams.
Mhm.
Maybe New Zealand and South Africa haven't won recently any of these events, but you can't say that they're underdogs. They're professional, good cricket teams.
But the prospect of Afghanistan winning certainly would be a feel good story, especially with the
Hey,
current political climate and
it
what's
would be
going
a
on.
huge boost to the country.
Yeah. Australian batsman Marnus Labuschagne came out recently and said he doesn't mind playing against Afghanistan. Obviously, Australia, they have been fighting this sort of political war. They hosted the Afghanistan women's team in a match in Australia to show solidarity and to show
Hey,
what do you
listen,
make
but to
of
show
this?
solidarity, you should be playing against Afghanistan too, because as I've told you again and again, remember these Afghanistan cricketers are also victims. They barely can go to their country. They live outside their country, but they represent their country, right? So they're victims too. And there's a victim of circumstance. That's what it really is. Not to get into politics, but to be honest, all of this has been caused by countries like Australia, England, the US, right? Afghanistan wouldn't be in this position if not for these countries.
Oh, absolutely. Glenn Maxwell Samir, the savior of the game in the last World Cup. He's 17 runs away from 4,000 runs in ODI cricket. I would have thought Glenn Maxwell would have had a lot more, but still, that's an outstanding achievement.
Hey, Glenn Maxwell is one of those players, who, when you look at it, on the surface, he reminds you of Shahid Afridi. He's a match winner that wins a match once in a year, right? But the
It's still
truth
pretty good,
is,
though.
hey, listen, once again, if you look at his career and you compare it to Shahid Afridi, there are many similarities. Now, obviously, Glenn Maxwell hasn't played as many test matches as Shahid Afridi, but he's played a lot of ODIs, a lot of T20 cricket. And hey, listen, once again, we see the performances, especially, with the bat. He's had major performances. Remember that 201 against Afghanistan in the World Cup of 128 balls? That pretty much carried the team to the finals and won them the World Cup, right? So, hey, listen, that is one thing that you can say about Glenn Maxwell. He is an X factor and he loves playing against Afghanistan for some reason.
Yeah. The 26-year-old Rashid Khan also 1 wicket away from 200 ODI wickets. Rashid Khan has been around for a long time, Samir. It's amazing that he's still only 26 years old. He's been around for about 10 years.
Hey, listen, I think he started his career at a very, very young age. Remember, he's already captained Afghanistan, right? So
Mhm.
that is an achievement by itself, where he's already been captain. And I think once again, it's one of those things where we talk about Shahid Afridi. Was he really that young when he started? The same thing with Rashid Khan. Is he really 26? That's a question that we've had in the past. He might not be 26. He might be 36. Who knows? You know what I
Are,
mean?
are you sure Glenn Maxwell reminds you of Shahid Afridi or is it Rashid Khan?
No, from an age perspective. But hey, listen, once again, I was comparing Glenn Maxwell's career path to Afridi, where I said, hey, listen, he played a little bit of Test cricket. Now, remember, Glenn Maxwell, I'm very surprised, has only played 7 Test matches. Right? I thought he would have played a lot more. But
Mhm.
Afridi played 27 Test matches.
Right.
Now, from the ODI standpoint, obviously, Afridi played almost 400 games. Glenn Maxwell is under 200 right now. He's eventually going to get to 200 games. And then in T20, Afridi played 99. But remember, T20 started at a later stage of Afridi's career. And,
Mhm.
Glenn Maxwell, his whole career has been T20, right? That's what it is. So I think, once again, Glenn Maxwell is a very, very accomplished player. And remember, he's a match winner for Australia on any given day.
Only four one-day internationals between these two sides, Samir. Afghanistan has never beaten Australia.
But they
Is
had a chance last time, right? They had a chance last time. Glenn Maxwell was standing in the way.
is tomorrow the day?
It absolutely could be. It absolutely could be. Once again, I'm picking Australia because I don't see Australian side at this point. You know, leaving it up to chance to get to the semifinals. So, and remember, they're already behind Australia on the run rate, right? If you look at the run rate, South Africa has a net run rate of 2.14, and Australia has a 0.475. So the
Mhm.
chances of, even if Australia loses to Afghanistan and then England beats South Africa, the chances that the net run rate is going to come down significantly is very low. So Australia has to win this game. Otherwise, I think Australia will be out. And usually, when Australia has to win a game, they win the game.
Where is this game in Rawalpindi or in
This
Lahore?
game is in Lahore.
Lahore.
The
So
weather is affecting it a little bit. It has been raining in Lahore, according to my sources right now. But they said that rain will stop around 9 a.m. local time, which is a few hours from now. And then it might start up again. And then there's rain on and off up to 6 p.m. So it's possible that there might be a T20 game.
so you reckon we should get cricket in tomorrow for sure?
I think they'll get some cricket in. I think Afghanistan will want to play this game, right?
They have
I
to.
think the cutoff time over these games is like around 11 o'clock.
Mhm.
Around I think they could even stretch it up to 12. I think so. So 11 to 12 o'clock is the cutoff time at night, right? So if the game starts at 6, you might get a 20-25 over game in, maybe even a 30 over game in, depending on the rain and how the ground situation is. Remember, this is a rebuilt stadium. They reconstructed the stadium right before the Champions Trophy started. So the ground has better facilities. The drainage is great, and I'm pretty sure they have the ground covered right now.
All right. Afghanistan has played the same team for the first couple of games. I think we're expecting them to play exactly the
Yeah,
same team
same
tomorrow.
team. Australia's going to play the same team. Maybe Spencer out, Sean Abbott in. Once again, that'll all depend on the Australian think tank, but I don't see any reason for them to change either.
I would probably instead of Spencer, the other left arm pacer. What's his name? Dorshit. Dorshit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, Ben Darsh. I think he's going to play too. I think he's
he's
going to
gonna
play.
play. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Even though he doesn't have a lot of experience in the international, arena, he has a lot of T20 and List A cricket experience. Once again, remember, he's a 30-year-old player. Remember, once again, we're not talking about young players at this point. Remember, most of these players that Australia have, even Sean Abbott is 32 years old. So it's not as if they're throwing in really, really young players at this point. Spencer Johnson, the same thing. He's 29, 30 years old. So Australia, remember Australia right now, because they've lost a lot of experience in this Champions Trophy in the bowling side with Cummins, Hazelwood, and Stark missing. So they opted to bring in experienced domestic cricketers, which I think can obviously perform whenever required.
Right. So Samir, the Champions Trophy has been exciting. A lot of great games. It's a little bit strange because we spoke about the group of death at the start of this tournament, and this group is still alive and will go down
Yes.
to the last game. And it's
Mhm.
strange that Group A has been decided. It feels like almost a week.
Yeah, because listen, Pakistan and Bangladesh, they're out. So the first group, remember, we always said the first group is going to be decided very quickly, right?
Yeah.
It was going to be a combination of New Zealand, India, and Pakistan is out, New Zealand, India is in, right? In this group, we always said, hey, listen, everybody's going to be in, right? Surprisingly, England is out. But now this game tomorrow decides that this group keeps going, right? So Afghanistan beats Australia, the group is still alive for because Afghanistan gets in, and then Australia and South Africa, one of the two get in, depending on weather and everything. Remember, obviously, if tomorrow weather affects this game and this game is decided off the field, then obviously Australia is in, Afghanistan's out, and then we go to the semifinals.
All right. So tomorrow we have Australia versus Afghanistan, and then the other games, Samir. We have what's the next game on Saturday?
Then South Africa plays England,
Mhm.
which could be a consequential game depending on the results from this game, which means that Afghanistan has to win in order for the next game to be important. And I think after that, the New Zealand India game is all about seeding, right? As I've said before, I think New Zealand and India don't care who they will be playing in the semifinals, and I don't think that New Zealand and India will want to go full strength into that game. Now, there's a lot of people who are saying this. It's about momentum, and you want to keep the winning going. Absolutely, you're right. You want to get the winning going, but I think New Zealand will be more. It'll be more important for New Zealand to just go in there and assess the conditions for the bay, just in case if they have to come back and play the finals there.
Yeah, I was about to say that. I think that that's actually an important game because again, New Zealand gets to play in Dubai. They also get to play India, who they could potentially meet in the final as
That's
well.
the only way they play in the finals if India gets to the finals, right?
Right. So
But remember, even for India, there's no guarantees they're getting to the final, just like New Zealand. Because remember, Australia and South Africa and even Afghanistan, if they qualify, are going to be a handful. And
absolutely.
as you've seen in this tournament, even though India has been very dominant, India has been dominant against weaker teams. Now India is going to have to play really strong teams in New Zealand, and then whoever they play in the semifinals, it could be Australia, it could be South Africa, it could be Afghanistan. I think all those three teams are significantly better than the competition that they've faced against. I
Yeah.
think India is also going to have, an issue with their pace trio, especially with now this game, the next game against New Zealand. They're going to see if they're going to really miss Bumrah.
All right, should be interesting. All right, fans, there you have it, our roundup or a preview of Afghanistan versus Australia, a virtual knockout game, a virtual quarterfinal tomorrow. The winner will advance to the semifinals. If Australia loses, they will have to sweat and see what happens in South Africa versus England. Again, you've been watching All or Cricket and the Massive Hit Cricket Show and our continued coverage of the Champions Trophy. Samir, I'll give you the final word.
Should be a cracker of a game tomorrow.
See you soon.
Take care.